As I've looked out to the horizon, I see a solid bank of even heavier cloud coming towards us, and Barry Sheen, who's come here by helicopter and knows about these things, tells me it's going to get worse rather than better. Well, that's the bad news, but and I'm afraid it's going to stay like it. But let's have a look at the championship situation. And in the lead with 5 brilliant victories already this year, and this is the 9th round out of 11, is the American Eddie Lawson, who was world champion in 1984 and rides a Yamaha. Second to him, Randy Mamola, another American who has ridden for Suzuki and for Honda, and this year is with the Kenny Roberts Yamaha team. 13 points behind Lawson, and you get 15 points for a world championship win, so there are still 45 points for wins, never mind the other places. Wayne Gardner, the Wizard of Oz, the Australian, is in 3rd position, riding for the first year in his considerable experience now on a machine that's genuinely capable of winning the World Championship, because he's on the 4-cylinder Honda of the type that Freddie Spencer has ridden with such tremendous success, the world champion in the 250 and the 500cc classes of 1985. And Spencer is out of the World Championship this year with tendinitis in a wrist. And in 4th position, yet another American, and the Americans have been dominating World Championship road racing for some time. Mike Baldwin, the champion of America, back in Grand Prix racing this year, having ridden a Honda in Grand Prix races in the past, but in 1986 on a Yamaha. And he's had several notable successes this year, because Baldwin's already had 4 third places. 5th position is Christian Saron, the Frenchman, ex-250 world champion. And by the way, his brother, Dominique Saron, has already won the 250cc British Grand Prix this year, so they'll be going for a double in the Saron family. And in 6th position, Rob McElhenney from Humberside, riding in the Team Agostini Yamaha team. And McElhenney's gone well in practicing. He's on the front row of the grid, but that is the situation in the World Championship, and the rain continues to belt down on this 2.93 mile circuit, to the general misery and dismay of everybody who has got the misfortune to be out in it. Getting ready to come out there, that's the assembly area at the end of the paddock, which is actually on the inside of Cops Corner. There's Ron Haslam, by the way, right in the middle of your picture, in the white helmet with the red RH on it, is Ron Haslam, ex-Honda Works rider, who this year is riding the distinctive and absolutely unique French Elf bike with a 3-cylinder Honda engine, which in my opinion is the prettiest motorcycle on the course, and has got a very distinctive suspension arrangement, which you may well see more of. So that's the news from Silverstone at the moment, but what is the background to the 1986 500cc British Grand Prix? 86 World Championship started in Spain, and it certainly started in dramatic style for Australia's Wayne Gardner on his works Honda. But thankfully, the only thing that was hurt was Wayne's pride. At the start, triple world champion Freddie Spencer shot into the lead on his Honda 4, whilst behind him, his American countryman, 1984 world champion Eddie Lawson, took his Yamaha past Wayne Gardner into 2nd place. For 17 laps, Spencer held the lead, only to retire with a wrist problem that was to ruin his season. But Honda still won the Spanish Grand Prix, a superb first World Championship victory for Wayne Gardner, with Lawson 2nd and Mike Baldwin 3rd. Round 2 at Monza, Italy, and disaster for Gardner, who was left on the line. So a clean sweep for the brutally powerful 4-cylinder Yamahas. Victory for Eddie Lawson, 2nd place to Randy Mamola, 3rd to Mike Baldwin, and 4th to Christian Saron. And Lawson led the championship. So now to the Nürburgring in Germany, a historic location, but a new circuit. A circuit which enabled Eddie Lawson to demonstrate his smooth, flowing style to perfection. But for Frenchman Christian Saron, a very different situation.
Well, I was fighting for the second position at the German Grand Prix with Wayne Gardner and Mike Baldwin. And suddenly the rear wheel just slid very, very quickly. And I couldn't control the bike, and when it gripped again, it just threw me in here.
The checkered flag for winner Eddie Lawson to increase his World Championship lead, with Gardner and Baldwin following him home. 3 rounds gone, and Lawson was clearly the man to beat. From Germany to Austria, with Freddie Spencer back on the scene and leading. But not for long. A broken steering damper cost him that lead, and Lawson was there to take over, pursued by the determined Australian Wayne Gardner. And then, with a recurrence of his wrist complaint, Spencer had to retire. So the hat-trick for Eddie Lawson, ahead of Gardner, Mamola, Saron, Baldwin, and Britain's Rob McElhenney. Yugoslavia next, with Gardner trying too hard to get on terms with Lawson. And Yugoslavia was the 4th successive win for the seemingly invincible quiet American Eddie Lawson. Steady Eddie and his superb Yamaha truly looked unbeatable. And with a championship lead now of 23 points, he surely had the title in the bag. He seemed quietly confident.
Things were going our way, and you know, the team seems to be working real well together. The Marlboro Yamaha team is probably one of the best around, and of course they're well organized, and I feel good, so everything kind of come together. It was a point in time where everything was just clicking right along perfectly.
But then the Dutch Grand Prix, disaster for the 2nd year running, right after the start. What happened?
Well, I got a bit of a bad start, and I was trying to catch up, and I was trying a little hard, and I went in too fast and got off in the grass. And it was a silly crash. I was probably doing 2 miles an hour when I stepped off the thing, but like I say, I was just going in the corner too fast.
Lawson's mistake gave Gardner his chance. The Honda was ahead.
And I was trying to explain to him, it's just an adjuster for the shock. It means nothing. It's no problem. I can go.
But believe it or not, Lawson was out, and the Wizard of Oz, Wayne Gardner, won his 2nd Grand Prix, ahead of Mamola and Baldwin, finishing as 1. And the championship was alive again, only an 8-point gap at the top. Round 7, Belgium, the glorious Spa circuit, rain, and Paul Lewis overboard. Enter Mike Baldwin, exit Mike Baldwin, and watch his presence of mind as he avoids disqualification by warning the marshals to leave his Yamaha alone. Raymond Roche fell too, but his Honda 4 was all for going on. Victory in Belgium for Randy Mamola, Yamaha's 5th win in 7 races. And Mamola's win took him to 2nd in the championship, 10 points behind Lawson. In France, at the Paul Ricard circuit, the battle was for 2nd place. Christian Saron, Wayne Gardner, Mike Baldwin, and Britain's Rob McElhenney fighting for it, fairing to fairing. Just the conditions to make a mistake, and McElhenney made it. And it was a whisker over the ragged edge for Saron, too. But ahead of them all, riding smoothly to his 5th win of the year, Eddie Lawson. Mamola 2nd, Saron 3rd, Baldwin 4th. Another Yamaha whitewash. So is the 1986 World Championship safe and secure for Eddie Lawson. With a 13-point lead, it's looking good for him. But 3rd-placed man Wayne Gardner is far from pessimistic.
There's still 3 races. I mean, the Yamaha's reliability is very good. All the Yamaha riders are excellent, and especially Eddie's riding very, very well, and he's on form. Anything can happen. Who knows what's around the corner, basically. I mean, racing is an unusual game. As you should know, you say one thing and it does the opposite.
Too right, Wayne Gardner. Well, you will have noticed from that review of the 8 races so far this year that there has not been a wet one. Well, I'm afraid we're more than making up for it at Silverstone today. Look at the circuit. It looks more like a cross-section of the River Thames as the riders come out from the assembly area on the parade lap up to the start and finish point. There's the front row of the grid with Wayne Gardner on the Honda 4 in pole position, and his time for pole position of 1 minute 28.16 was a whisker faster than Kenny Roberts' lap record, so Wayne Gardner can do it. But then all the Yamahas, Randy Mamola, the American who rides on number 6 and who's won the British Grand Prix here at Silverstone twice, already in second place on the grid. Eddie Lawson leading the World Championship but has never won at Silverstone, third. Then Christian Saron, also on a Yamaha, 250 World Champion in 1984. Mike Baldwin going really well on the Yamaha this year. Then Rob McElney, another of the Yamaha riders in the Team Agostini outfit. Raymond Roche, the Frenchman, ex-endurance champion, is on a Honda 4, but frankly he has not shown very well this year. The highest he's finished is 5th position, and in my opinion the best achievement on the front row is Roger Burnett, the young Englishman who has already won the senior TT this year and the transnational 1300cc championship, because Burnett is on a 3-cylinder Honda as opposed to the 4-cylinder works jobs that Gardner and Roche are riding. He's up there in the front, and Burnett has got a camera on his bike, and with luck we'll be seeing some real action shots from Roger Burnett. There is the camera to the left of his fairing. And Barry Sheen, you know all about Roger Burnett.
Yes, I do. I gave Roger a chance to ride my bike just before I retired in 1984, and in my opinion he is the guy to sort of nurture on the British scene. He's good, he's presentable, he's an excellent rider, and I only wish Hondas would have given him a 4-cylinder bike for this race, because I'm sure if they had done, he would have been higher up than he is now.
I wonder, Barry, because he's got less power with the 3-cylinder, but in today's conditions that may actually be an advantage for him.
Well, it might be, but the trouble is, you see, he's got less power, and therefore he's got less power at the end of the straight, so what you gain on the roundabouts, you lose on the horses.
We'll see now. I wonder what it looks like from a machine. Well, this was shot in the 250 race earlier on, but they're still going jolly quickly, looking through the fairing, and you don't get quite the visibility that the rider will, of course, because in front of the camera lens is the fairing, in front of the rider's eyes are his visor, and he gets a marginally better view, but still appalling conditions.
Yeah, really terrible. In actual fact, when you're behind a pack of riders, that's just about all the vis you do get. So therefore, if somebody falls off, say, 200 yards in front going into a corner, it's very, very difficult to see.
Now, these bikes produce close on 150 brake horsepower, these big 4-cylinder machines. This is a 250.
The trouble is, in this weather with the 500cc's, they, for some reason or another, the 500s do have a bit of a problem in the damp weather, the rainy weather, with throttles sticking and that. And I was talking to the Shell technician this morning, and they've been working flat out to come up with a really good oil that doesn't stick the throttles and that. And now they've developed it, which is really good, and they're also selling it for people on the road.
There is Randy Mamola, 26 years old, twice a winner at the British Grand Prix in 1980 and 1984. He's riding, as you can see, the Team Roberts Yamaha 4-cylinder bike. Paul Butler on the left there, the team chief. And Mamola this year has won in Belgium. He's had second places in Italy, Yugoslavia, Holland and France. Third in Austria, and he is second in the World Championship, 13 points behind his countryman Eddie Lawson.
Yeah, Mamola has everything to gain today and nothing to lose, really. The guy I really feel sorry for is Eddie Lawson, because he's at the front of the World Championship table, and he's got to really use his head today, Eddie, because, as I say, everybody behind him, Baldwin, Mamola, Uncle Tom Cobley and all, are all going to be after him, and he's just got to be so careful not to throw his lead away. He's leading the championship away.
Yes, even Eddie Lawson is not above making mistakes, as we saw earlier on when he came off on that first corner in Holland. He could have gone on, but for the obduracy of the marshal, who was stopping him for reasons that weren't really fair. There is Eddie Lawson. Always looks terribly preoccupied and miserable. Very nice chap, in fact. And the visor being taped up to stop the rain and moisture getting in.
Yeah, funny, I was just going to say that, boy, he hasn't got any tape on his visor, just as I thought it, the guy put some on. It's such a difficult job in this weather, because with a 500, they're quite heavy lumps of metal, and you puff and pant quite a lot, and because your breath is so warm, it smokes up the inside of the visor, and once your visor smokes up, it doesn't make any difference what you do. That's the end of the day. I'm surprised that Eddie doesn't have something over his nose, actually.
Well, I think he's got that latest kind of helmet with the slots in the front, which are supposed to overcome the problem. But anyway, Roberts, like all the men in the front rank, is going to be controlling some 150 brake horsepower, 6-speed bikes. They weigh about 120 kilograms. And down the straight from Chapel to Stowe, top right of your picture, they can do in dry conditions 180 miles an hour at about 12,000 RPM. But let's go a verbal lap around Silverstone. Bottom left of your picture, Woodcote is where the lap starts. On a flying lap, they'll come out of Woodcote in 5th gear at about 160 miles an hour. Yes, I did say 160 miles an hour. Down the straight to Copse, back into 3rd gear, 110 miles an hour, accelerating up for the left-hander at Maggots, which they take at about 160, into the slowest corner, Beckett's at the top of your picture, 2nd gear in, 3rd gear out, 75 miles an hour on the apex, then up into 3rd and 4th, down the hanger straight, up into top gear at just before the bottom of the hanger straight, 175 miles an hour on a motorcycle. Stowe corner, 4th gear, about 125. Then the dash down to Club, 120 miles an hour in 3rd. Then accelerating up to the fastest part of the course, round Abbey Curve into 6th gear, just before Woodcote, a whisker over 175 miles an hour. And what's it feel like, Barry?
What's it feel like? Oh, it doesn't feel too bad, really, in conditions like this. The nice thing about this year, well, not exactly the nice thing, but last year's conditions were very bad. And the thing that was really bad last year, we had a lot of surface water, but terribly high winds, 40, 50 mile an hour winds. The good thing about today, the winds dropped, but I spoke to London Met Office before, and they reckon there's a lot worse weather on the way up. So, well, more rain in actual fact.
Well, this is 28 laps, and don't panic, the race hasn't started. This is the final parade lap, assembly lap, warm-up lap, call it what you will. And there is Raymond Roche, number 7, the Frenchman on the 4-cylinder Honda, the man from Toulon. Number 3, Christian Saron going through the screen. There is Eddie Lawson leading the World Championship. Number 9, Rob McElney, his British teammate in the Team Agostini team. Roger Burnett there up at the front. But this is a warm-up lap, so it really doesn't matter. There's no weaving and bobbing about on motorcycles to warm up the tyres.
No, there's not, and it wouldn't do much good in weather like this. It's coming back to the start. It's a bit of a lottery these days. When you think in the 1980s, they used to have to push the bike off the line, and a lot of the Yamaha guys have had a lot of trouble this year. One week, Lawson will get a good start. The next week, he'll get left on the line, so we'll have to watch the start closely.
And Barry, all the practicing in the dry, the race in the wet, may well have caused setting up problems for a lot of them.
Well, it's not so bad with a bike, Murray, because in actual fact, when I was racing, you just leave the bike as it is. You know, a lot of people see, look, this is the trouble. You can see a lot of surface water. And when you're doing that's Abbey Curve, 160 odd mile an hour going into it, you only have to be slightly off a line 3 laps into the race, and it'll aquaplane like you just wouldn't believe.
Down to Woodcote at the end of the parade lap with Christian Saron leading through. They come to form up on the grid. 6 rows, 30 competitors, and soon the order will be given and the tension will rise to clear the grid. And as ever, tyres are critical. Some of the riders on Michelin tyres, some of the riders on Dunlop tyres.
Yeah, in actual fact, all the Works Hondas and the Works Yamahas are on Michelin tyres. Talking to Roger Burnett's on Dunlops, and the Dunlop isn't as good as the Michelin in the rain.
Eddie Lawson leads the World Championship from Randy Mamola. Then Wayne Gardner on the Honda. Mike Baldwin, Christian Sarrell, Rob McElhenney, the leading British rider. And there is Wayne Gardner, fresh from his triumph at Suzuka in the 8-hour endurance race. He's won every race he's ever ridden in Japan. They had 270,000 people watching last weekend, and believe it or not, they sold 20,000 Wayne Gardner t-shirts on one day. Wayne's been exercising himself in between practice, building a radio-controlled helicopter, and he's all set for the race. Four-cylinder Honda. His father and mother are here to see the race, and they refuse to take any money from Wayne to come over. And believe it or not, Mrs. Gardner won a competition, the prize for which was a trip to Europe. So how could they use it better than this?
In weather, I was talking to Wayne yesterday, and the Honda is a little bit more difficult to ride in conditions like this because the power is a little bit sort of fierce the way it comes in. And Wayne doesn't really like the rain. Well, nobody likes the rain, but Wayne doesn't really like it too much at all. The guy to watch in this race, in my opinion, is Mamola, because at one time everybody used to say he was hopeless in the wet, which he was, but he's certainly learnt now, and he's very, very good in the rain.
I remember when the British used to talk disparagingly about the Americans and their alleged inability to ride in the rain, and then at the Transatlantic Trophy meeting one year, the conditions were appalling, and the Americans, one of whom was Kenny Roberts, just disappeared into the distance. And since then we have learned better than to say that they can't ride in the rain. Very, very good. Pole position, Wayne Gardner on the right of the grid, number 4, four-cylinder Honda. Second, Randy Mamola, four-cylinder Yamaha. Four-cylinder Yamaha, Eddie Lawson, third. Four-cylinder Yamaha, Christian Sarrell, fourth. Four-cylinder Yamaha, Mike Baldwin, fifth. Four-cylinder Yamaha, Rob McElhenney, sixth. Four-cylinder Honda, Raymond Roche, sixth, seventh. And three-cylinder Honda, Roger Burnett, eighth. Watch him.
Well, that's the thing, you know, it shows how good he's done. He's on a three-cylinder bike, and he doesn't have the full factory support. It's a Honda Britain bike, so I think we should watch Roger. Let's just hope his tyres are good enough. 26
years old, comes from Wootton, has won the Transnational Championship, 6 years experience, and he's won the Motor Prix series already. And just look at that rain and the eyes of Roger Burnett. Now Roger has got his nose and his mouth taped up to prevent, or try to prevent, any moisture from his breathing out getting onto the inside of the visor. As Barry has said, once you've got the moisture inside and your visor is misted up, there's nothing you can do about it. Randy Mamola, 1 minute to go.
The first 2 laps of this race is critical so that people can find out where the bad surface water is. So let's hope everybody uses their head on the first couple of laps, because it is really very, very tricky.
The heavy rain that we saw arriving, the extra heavy rain that we saw arriving, has, I'm sorry to say, arrived. All I can say is it's not going to get worse. It can't get worse. We can only hope that it will get better. With seconds to go before the start of the 1986 500cc British Grand Prix, Eddie Lawson leading the World Championship. Is he going to make it 6 wins? Only 3 men have won a 500cc race. The red is on. The green is on. Now, who's getting a good start?
Burnett.
Roger Burnett. Fantastic. Roger Burnett gets a superb start. But up to the lead goes Manfred Fischer, the German. And Randy Mamola is in about 10th position. There is Ron Haslam. Randy Mamola had a very bad start. He's much lower than 10th. And you can see the great ball of spray that the midfield and tail enders are riding through. And I can hardly believe my eyes, because it's Manfred Fisher well up, but Wayne Gardner takes the lead at Beckett's, and Fisher is in second place, and it looked like Ron Haslam in third position. Eddie Lawson is in about 10th place. Mamela is about 15th. Gardner still leads down the Hanger Straight. Up to second place, I think, is Didier de Rodriguez.
Yeah, Didier's just got into second, and Didier is the man to watch in the rain. He is outstanding in the rain, as is Haslam. Hold somebody's down.
And that's got to be a front man, and the blue and white bike, surely it isn't Wayne Gardner's Honda. We can't identify. We'll let you know as soon as we possibly can. Meantime, the leaders are coming through to complete their first lap. The race is being stopped. Instant response from control, with Wayne Gardner leading, with Didier de Rodriguez second, with Roche in third position, with Eddie Lawson up to fourth. I'm afraid that looks like a rather nasty one. The incident car is out. The marshals are already positioning the hay bales to protect the rider. That's in the event of the race going on, but as you now know, it has been stopped in these appalling conditions.
Well, that's good that they make a quick decision to stop a race like that, because so many times people end up playing around, and it's nonsensical.
Well, the accident was halfway round Maggots, and we still can't see who it is, I'm afraid. But with the red flag out, with the riders down to touring speed now, this is a commendable response from the organisers, who were fiercely criticised in the recent past for failing to stop, in the opinion of some people, a British Grand Prix fast enough when there had been an accident. But that criticism can certainly not be levelled at them this time. There was an instant response. Out went the red flag. There are the crossed yellow and the oil flag, the red and white, and into the paddock come the riders. We have a feeling that it may be Paul Lewis's bike.
Yes, it is Paul Lewis's bike, I can see it.
Yes, well, there's Paul Lewis's bike, the mighty Ant, the little Australian, the diminutive Australian, who rides very, very hard indeed. And it is Paul Lewis who is in trouble down there. And with the ambulance in the background, I fear I do not like the look of this at all. Paul Lewis, the mighty Ant, 7 times champion of Australia, and he is getting his chance this year because the Heron Suzuki team have given him a works ride after Rob McElney left them to join Yamaha this year. And he's a little chap, Paul Lewis, and it may just be that the Suzuki was beyond his strength to control as he went into the corner. But we will let you know as soon as we can what we find out about Paul Lewis, who, as you can see, is still by the side of the circuit. And the riders, meantime, are back in the paddock area, getting back into their garages. And we wait to hear how long it is going to be before the race is restarted. The critical thing, of course, being how long it takes to get Paul Lewis, presumably, into an ambulance and off the course. There is no other obstruction. I think it'll probably take as much as half an hour to get the race re-going again, because once you've stopped it and the riders have gone back to their garages, there you see is one of the Team Roberts Yamahas. So let's recap a tragic start to the 1986 500cc British Grand Prix. Everybody got away well. An absolutely fantastic start from the West German Manfred Fischer, who was passed by Wayne Gardner on the 4-cylinder Honda, and Wayne had got a good lead with a clear circuit in front of him. When back behind him, Paul Lewis presumably lost control of his Suzuki, and that is what we are waiting for now, for Paul Lewis to be taken away in the ambulance and for the race to be restarted. and we look forward to you joining us then.